People like to believe the Secretary General surrendered because the Muharej threatened the population. After all the great secret keeper had done in Asia, people were expecting genocide. Almost immediately after the sea moon appeared, the Pandef Tower was bombed. 4 times in an hour. Pandef was known for its fury and resilience. It was designed to fight fragments. Within hours, they regrouped and in a collaborative effort with UN peacekeepers, attempted to take UN headquarters back from Iconoclast. They were slaughtered. The rest fled. It proved what the world had always known. There was no opposing fragments. If fragments around the world answered Iconoclast's call to arms, it really was the end. There were rumors that Pandef's Super Black themselves stepped forward to stop Muharej, but were defeated by Iconoclast herself. Other rumors said the members of Super Black were called back to their home countries by their governments to prepare for imminent attack. That certain countries knew the Muharej was coming to Polis, but abandoned us. But Pandef, being Pandef, would continue to assault the UN building for days, turning central Polis Earth into a war zone. And still, people flew kites and hoped beyond hope and prayed beyond prayer that their last hope would answer them. But she was nowhere to be found. People held marches by candlelight, just so she would hear them. Governments around the world sent out broadcasts appealing for her to help. Children wrote letters and sent them off into the night, onto lanterns which glide across the star-bursting lakes of Coro de la Galaxio. And they do what the stories promised made her hear them. They lit candles and they spoke to the flames. If only they knew what their prayers did to her. All their hope was met with silence. She was gone, just like those who came before her, just like Orion. So there was no one to stop Iconoclast when she sent 3 fragments and a battalion of fighters to do the unthinkable and capture Coro. It had been days since the sea moon appeared, and so days since the anniversary, but in the face of the crisis, people didn't stop celebrating, and the anniversary of Amazing continued. Coro continued to be full, not just to celebrate Amazing, but to call the Guardian, to hope that she would answer their call. They had no idea that the more they called her, the less she was likely to come. But the Muharej heard them and did what no one in the history of humanity had ever done, crossed the line no terrorist, tyrant, fanatic, or hate criminal had ever done before. Iconoclast targeted our faiths, our cultures, just like she swore she would, all of them. She took the Muharej in a new direction. She would wipe out what we held sacred, creating Rain Earth from scratch. If Polis Earth was the one place on Earth that was supposed to be safe, Coro de la Galaxio was a big part of why. Because it was sacred. Polis Earth promised people of all faiths and cultures that they could practice and share and raise their children without persecution or hate. The promise of Coro de la Galaxio, the heart of the galaxy, in Esperanto, the language of hope. Hindus who spoke of a universe that was good and just. Atheists who loved life and the world. Muslims, Sunni, Shia, Alawite, Sufi, and beyond, who spoke of kindness and education and charity. Buddhists, Theravada and Mahayana, and beyond, who spoke of compassion and believed everyone could grow and give. Christians who spoke of mercy and believed no one was ever alone. Jews who dreamt and loved and celebrated life. Sikhs who valued the sanctity of all things. People of indigenous faiths. Native Americans who spoke of a sacred earth. Aboriginal Oceanians whose dreams leaked into the waking world. Quakers who spoke of peace and that life was worth living. People of the Baha'i faith who saw love in every waking thing and promised we were all one in our diversity. Shinto practitioners who spoke of a living, waking world. Jainists who spoke of humility and strength and goodness, and so many more. The Zoroastrianists who believed in the warmth of light, and the Yazidis who spoke of a beautiful world. Those who followed the Tao, or were of the Tao. Those who brought their spirits from the Pacific and their Ashvarians from the north. Rastafa in the south and further, as far as the streams go and beyond. Beyond terms that could be listed or words that could be gathered. Together they practiced and lived and woke and brought with them more than their theology. They brought their colors, their celebrations. They brought their food and words and worlds. If songfire, if the streams of life began somewhere, then it began there, in the soul of Polis, in the heart of the galaxy, where colors spun and burned iridescent and infinite in 1,000 million ways to be and think and feel and love. 1,000 million ways which proved life was full of possibility. It was our everything. Koro was sacred to everyone. The islands helped create a new paradigm, that spirituality was exploration and pursuit. It was an entrance into science and advancement. Research centers and think tanks, foundations, the world's largest libraries, rivaled only by Alexandria in the first country, were all established, whilst machinists installed workshops there to study the life streams. The University of Frontier Studies was established in the heart of the galaxy, pioneering astronomy, medicine, environmental, and cultural studies. Koro bustled with markets, most notably the Souk al-Nujum, the market by starlight, and at the center of Koro was the Natkatira temple, named after Deepa. It was a place for all people of all faiths to worship, particularly during the anniversary, when a lot of the religious buildings would become too crowded. But that anniversary, as the wars started, people held on to hope, and Natkatira temple didn't empty, and Koro stayed bustling, bursting at the seams. Iconoclast was counting on it. Pandef and the peacekeepers couldn't stop her, not when she began the offensive. The hundreds of people in Koro became hostages, and the Muharej made no demands, only that they would begin killing people in 3 days, murdering them there in their most sacred of places. She was going to take Koro, the world's heart, from it, put out the light. The world rushed to seek some kind of resolution with Iconoclast, but there was nothing they could say to her. Pandef fought fiercely, but they couldn't get close. One of the fragments Iconoclast had sent made that impossible. The islands of Koro shook and quaked and chimed in awesome symphony as they rose. They rose, exploded from the water and rippled, cascaded into the air, creating pillars of ocean which refracted and reflected the colors of the sun, the stars, and the sea moon, creating rainbow bridges into the sky, skyrocketing out of the Great Lakes, suspending them in the Empyrean, connecting them by a network of sky rivers which shone with the imprint of twilight like stained glass. The rush of the rainbow pillars and the stained glass roads sirened, and the wind and light echoed like bells. It was wondrous. People thought of Deepak. It was terrifying. They remembered Julian. It was the first public display of fragment power since the Four Shards Ward, excluding the works of the Guardian. It was a show of power by the insurgents. People prayed harder. They called the Guardian. They screamed and begged on the streets. But the Scarlet Sprinter did not come. On the second day, a man set himself on fire. His children were on Koro when the Muharej attacked. His family said he often talked about the Guardian, that somehow he would make her act. She had to save his children. She had to. Still, only silence met their songs and cries. And came the final hour of the last night, only an hour before midnight. The sea moon, the great ghost, shone infernal. Someone was playing a rock song by Origa of Chandrama. It was late, but the people of Polis Earth celebrated life deep into the night. They were in the middle of war, but the people of the Deepawali saw living as their greatest defiance. The copper bronze young woman who didn't believe in God liked being around it all, no matter what it did to her. But she was tired. She was so tired. She couldn't answer any more of their wishes, bear any more of their hearts. She was just one person. She didn't want to die. She wanted to live, even if she didn't have much time left. She wanted to read comics and eat ice cream, walk ankle deep in the sea and be left alone. She was in love now. Didn't that mean she was a person too? That she had the right to live too? She'd do anything to be left alone. To finally be left alone. Even if it all disappeared. Even if Iconoclast destroyed everything. So what? Why was it her responsibility? She couldn't defeat the Muharej anyway. She'd already lost to the great secret keeper. She couldn't beat him. So what difference would it make if she fought the rain dance? No more fighting. No more pain. If she couldn't block out the noise, if she couldn't protect her own heart and mind, she didn't have to give them her body too. These people who hated and fought and expected her to come to fix their mistakes. So what if someone set themselves on fire? She felt his pain as he did. Wasn't that enough? She blamed Deepak and Orion for leaving, for disappearing and forcing her to become the Guardian, forcing her to become some hero all alone. She never asked for this. She never asked to be the Guardian, to have all her power, for flowers to stalk her wherever she went. how she hated those flowers, how she hated the lights. Then why? Why was she standing there? Standing on the iridescent water of the Great Lakes, looking up at the ocean pillars and bridges filled with racing stars, which suspended and connected the heart of the galaxy, Coro della Galaxio. Why? Why? Why was she there? Because the night air smelt of camellias. Though iconoclasts insisted they call themselves rain dance, many still bore the mark of the mythology to show their ultimate loyalty to the great secret keeper, who had taught them to be merciless and compassionless. A few of their fighters manned the holy sites, but not too many. They didn't need too many to capture Coro and keep it under control. Not with those three there. Power, fury, and terror. That's how the three of them were known in Icon's ranks. Total dominion over coercion, retribution, and madness. Zoa, revolt, and Jin. There was no escaping them. The whole world knew that. They had made their presence known. The Coral Islands were hundreds of meters above the water, thanks to Zoa. And it would take any one of them, Zoa, Revolt, or Jin, to kill everyone and destroy everything there. But Iconoclast insisted on taking fighters. They sat atop Nutkatira, Revolt taking in the beauty of the night, Zoa reveling in the awesome might of his power, which had suspended entire islands in the sky, and Jin not feeling very much at all. He, more than anyone else in the Rain Dance uprising, had taken Iconoclast's call to abandon humanity to heart, or maybe he never had any to begin with. Zoa was a young man from Antarctica, snow-burnt skin and slender build. His physical weakness fueled his rage, and manifested in the terrible fury of his power as a fragment. Driven mad by the conflict in his home country, he couldn't remember if he was or Mu. Revolt was a young woman whose body pulsed in black and purple blood, which fumed in her like lightning, causing blossoms of shadow all around her. Furious at the pain the world had caused her city of Incandescent, she had abandoned her humanity and joined Iconoclast's brand of the Rain Dance. She would never say she was of the mythology. Jin was still just a little boy, not even a teenager. Devoid of expression and hope, his nightmares ran deep, and he would punish all the world for them. "It's midnight," said Zoa. "Shame they didn't send Super Black. I've been dying to fight those guys." "They wouldn't send Super Black. Icon threatened to start killing the population if any country interfered," Revolt pointed out. "The New World, Middle Kingdom, and Ursia have backed down now too." "That's awesome. When did that happen?" Zoa asked, excitable and violent. He didn't concern himself with the politics of their cause. All he ever wanted was to be a part of something that would let him run wild and destroy anything he could. "Earlier today," said Jin, something between sorrow and indifference in every word he said. "If they continued to attack, she was going to send me to the hospital district." "She's changed," Revolt said. "Killing innocent people, using Secret Keeper's soldiers. Icon hates guns. That's what she told me." "Oh, don't start. You've wrecked whole towns, killed how many enemies on your own, and you still talk like you belong in Orion." Zoa spat. "I'm a rain dancer. I do not believe," Revolt said, determined. "Time is up," Jin uttered. "These people have to die now." "Wait, what's happening?" Revolt uttered as she noticed the streams, the chords of light, jade and crimson, sapphire and amber, as they hummed in the star-burned sky. Gunshots. The three of them turned to the ground as a scarlet blast of light rode across the water bridges connecting the various islands of Coro, burning rainbows into the world. Gunfire following and falling silent in waves after it. Flowers blooming on the water and earth as the Scarlet crossed Coro in a furious shimmer of fireworks and iridescence. She reached them, billowing rose smoke, wildflowers where she stands. No armor or guns, nothing but a dress the color of day, skin that was copper bronze, and flowers at her feet, her eyes blazing in rings of emerald galaxies. "Well, well," Zoa laughed. "Looks like you finally made an appearance." "It's you," Revolt gasped. "Come to die," said Jin. "Is this it? You're the Guardian? You're just some Deepa Wally girl," Zoa mocked. "You're probably younger than me." The Guardian said nothing. Do you know who we are? What could you possibly do against us? We know from the Great Secret Keeper that you're not even awakened yet. We are. What's the point of a fragment if they're not even awakened? What could you possibly do with us without an awakened form? Do you know who I am? I am Zoa, Zone of Avoidance, the blank part of the universe we aren't able to map. No stars, no light, just a great attractor, the force so powerful it pulls all celestial objects towards it. I have power over dark energy, the invisible force which propels planets and galaxies through the universe, the same force that Amazing used to get to Earth. You think you're strong because you can tap into the life streams? You're nothing compared to me. And Revolt? She has the power of the storm giants. And Jin? Well, I'll let you figure that out. So what, you think you can rescue these people, or are you just gonna hand yourself over? Zoa grimaced, his eyes blazing a pale blue. The Guardian didn't move. She didn't speak. I thought she was supposed to have red hair, said Jin. Do we take her back to Iconoclast? Revolt asked. No. Kill her, Jin ordered. Zoa's eyes grew wide, grinning as he gagged, and the street on which the Guardian stood warped and bent as the streetlights curved and the air itself grew heavy and strained in preparation for some terrible eruption. And it all erupted. The roads, nearby buildings, streetlights, earth, and air exploded in a rush as it all shattered and sped, raced into the sky. Hailstorm of comets and air which sped so fast it exploded in waves of burning, incandescent plasma. The Guardian hurtled into the sky, catching her balance and sprinting alongside the chaos which burned and cascaded, and exploded as the streaks of white heat caught up with it all. Zoa hurtled into the Empyrean after her, and the sky itself changed direction. The world spun and the stars sped by in streaks of racing scars, as the Guardian found herself thrown into the infinity, which changed direction again, quaking the heavens themselves and striking her down. She plummeted like a comet and crashed vertical into the ocean pillar which suspended the main Natkatira island. She skid across the rainbow bridge which shone and flared as she raced with it, the world spinning undefinable in colors and noise around her. She clapped her hands together, spun, and fired a heavy stream of gleaming, star-breeding Scarlet at Zoa, which he willed to change direction sharply before hitting him. The Guardian rode the stream, pacing towards Zoa, who again tilted the sky and threw the Guardian up into the infinity, where burning in black and violet, Revolt waited. Lightning, a torrent of black lightning struck the Guardian. But before it could force her to the water, the air raced and quivered and erupted from where Zoa suspended himself, a skyquake rifle. The Guardian twisted and burnt and forced herself in a different direction to avoid it, but as the air increased speed and burned again into plasma, it met Revolt's black lightning. They merged into a beam of pure rage and retribution, shimmering in fantastic violet and quaking in pale blue and white. It shattered the sky and burst after the Guardian, who raced, paced to outfly the cannon. She was hit. What followed was a blinding flash which annihilated the air and created a vacuum. She was pulled through it and smashed against the force of it all. She was falling, parts of her body blown clean off, a stream of crimson bleeding from her. Then fire. She caught a blaze and billowed in rose smoke as she fell, and neither Zoa nor Revolt could believe their eyes as her body healed. Then she changed trajectory, hurtling towards them. Revolt again fired wave after wave of black lightning, but the Guardian caught it, shook it, and converted it into bolts of scarlet energy, which transmitted themselves back to Revolt, where her shadow bloom warped and malfunctioned, causing her to fall into the water below. Zoa responded again by changing the trajectory of the sky, but Sam burst into flames and vanished, bursting into being directly in front of Zoa as they hurtled through the sky, her palm on his chest. The universe rippled and bloomed in flowers, and Zoa was blasted into the water, skidding across it, before burning a path across the roads of Koro and coming to a halt where Sam dives into him, a crater in their wake. No way, Zoa manages to utter as the Guardian delivers a final, definitive blow to his head. With Zoa defeated, the islands of Koro de la Galaxio fall, crash into the great lakes of Polis Earth, causing the world to hum and waves of rainbow rings to emanate from their fall. In the silence that follows the downing, the copper-bronze Guardian breathes. She falls to her knees. She grows weaker. It hurt more than prayer. People were dying. She forced herself back to her feet, covered in burns, her dress the color of day now crimson with her wounds. Natkatira temple before her. She begins to walk in, but each step now takes all of her might. The kid, he was murdering people. She took another step and fell, She stood again, barely she entered the temple, her ankles drenched in blood. Not a soul was left standing, no less than 100 people lying on the ground. The feeling of 100 machetes cutting into her body. She gags, vomits, and collapses to her knees. And as she does, cold, bitter metal digs itself into her. Zoa was awakened, and as far as I know, you're not. But even so, the little boy who named himself Jin began pulling the machete out of her. I expected you to win, since you took on the great secret keeper. So if you draw your power from life, then the solution was simple. I just needed to start killing people. The boy looked at her with the blankness with which he stared at all things. Rain dance etiquette says fragments need to announce their abilities before fighting as a matter of pride. But it really wouldn't have made a difference. Right now, you're probably wondering why you can't fight back. Why you couldn't see me coming. Why you couldn't overpower some kid half your size. You're wondering how a little kid like me managed to kill all these people without any resistance. My ability is called Ghost Story. I have the ability to affect the parameters of human imagination. So as I stabbed these people, they couldn't imagine me being a threat. Even after seeing me start killing people, they couldn't even imagine defending themselves. Only 2 people have ever been immune to me and noticed me when I didn't want to be noticed. The only 2 people to ever recognize that I exist are the great secret keeper, because he's a god, and iconoclast, because she was never really human. But you're nothing. You're just another human, and you'll die with them. All of them. No one is coming to help. Now lie there and know what it feels like to live in a world where no one notices you, where no one cares. There's no such thing as heroes. No such thing as amazing. No such thing. And with that, Jin, crimson with blood, began to make his leave. No such thing. The words echoed in Sem's mind and heart. Maybe it was better this way. Maybe it was better if she died. Maybe the Eclipse King was right, and life really was just a mistake. It was just so hard, so painful, nothing like the comics. And darkness swelled over her as she drifted into terrible, eternal sleep. And as her eyes drifted shut for the last time, she saw her. Ashti. Ashti was there. Among all the stabbed people, she was lying on the floor. The guardian swelled with grief, which burned her awake. Then she could hear it, a ka-thump. Her heart, Ashti's heart, it was still beating. It was dying, but it was still beating. Then many others, hearts. So many of them were still alive. Their hearts still beating, lights. She could see them, pale, dying, but still living lights. They weren't dead yet. She had to do something. Orion wasn't there anymore. Amazing was long gone. She had to stand up. She has to. Up, up, up. She beats and breathes and roars and quakes and beats. Up, up. She beats and roars and up. She roars and cries with all the might of 100 souls wishing to live. Jin turns, unable to believe it, as the guardian's bronze hair burned scarlet and her skin pulsed an aura of iridescence and amber, which filled the temple and elevated the lights from each person's heart. Stars fill the fires and waves and winds of galactic radiance as she roars and hums, and there is symphony, song, as it all fills with all color which torches perfect black with the light and might of all things, like the beauty of the ever-vast universe. Her ringed emerald eyes become lined in cosmic black, and her hair burns with the fury of 10 million stars, which turn the universe pitch and dark, black, all color, iridescent, black. A shadow, full of secrets she becomes, secrets and might and wonder as galaxies and planets and stars emerge and radiate through her awesome darkness. She closes her eyes, and when she opens them again, they are perfect, sublime black as endless possibility and infinite hope. Monster, Jin utters as Asem awakens. The guardian in awesome cosmic black, filled with stars and fires, turns to him. He runs, and she breathes as the 100 pale lights siren and flare and burn bright and return to their bodies. Their wounds close, and Ashti opens her eyes, the color of camellias once again in her cheeks. It is then that I and members of Pandef burst into the hall in wonder of the 100 lives spared, in horror, as 100 blade wounds open across Sem's body, and she falls to the ground, copper bronze and red once more. I race to her and hold her with all my might, praying with all my might that all my might is enough. She opens her emerald eyes, if only for a moment, to see me, and I smile. Tears burn her face. Asem closes her eyes, and I pray. I swear I pray. Wildflowers all around us. Hi guys, I'm recording from a cafe, which is very cool. I've always wanted to record from a cafe. So basically that was the end of chapter 1 of Seeking Scarlet. So yeah, parts 1 and 2 constitute chapter 1. And from now on we're going to get a lot more of Petra. And Petra, you might have noticed, someone is narrating the story. And that is Petra. She is Asem's lover, friend, and guide. And she's a story collector, so she interviews people, she writes things down in her diary, she collects stories from all around the world, and on her journeys she came across stories of the Guardian or the Scarlet Sprinter, and that brought her to Polis Earth to find Asem. And so yeah, we're going to go back in time a little bit, and we're going to explore some of Petra's backstory and how she made her way to Polis Earth, and some of the stories she came across in the beginning regarding Asem. So yeah, I wanted to use the space just to share some notes about the story and about parts 1 and 2. So the symbol you saw at the end of part 2, the flame-like symbol, is basically the flaming flower, the flower fire, and that is basically Asem's symbol as far as I see it. That's her symbol, the flaming wildflower. Something else I wanted to share is that I will be releasing some auxiliary scenes, some additional scenes which didn't make it into the final drafts of the book, but which I incorporated into script form. So basically they're in the form of screenplays. Basically I'm applying for film school, so I've had to convert some of the book into script. And so these are like additional things that have happened in the background of the story, additional conversations and stuff, which I think you guys might find interesting, and which I think are kind of, in retrospect, quite crucial to the story. So yeah, do check them out when you have time. Something I also wanted to share is how I imagine, if this ever does get turned into an animated film, Iconoclast is presented in the beginning of the story. Basically, I want to avoid showing her face. I basically, all you'll see of her is, if this is ever made, is her back, and to begin with anyway. And on her back is the rain dance insignia. She's wearing a military coat, long blue military coat, a UN military coat actually, and there's a reason why she's wearing a UN military coat. And on it she's imprinted the rain dance insignia for all the world to see. She's bearing the rain dance movement on her back, so to speak. So yeah, is there anything else I wanted to share with you guys? Oh yeah, so there's one scene I'm not going to read out, but one where Petra, she's invited to an emergency meeting at Pandef with the UN Secretary General. And she is basically invited because she's seen as a connection to Asem, and they want her to find Asem and to tell her what's going on, and then make sure she comes to help. And as she leaves the building, as she leaves the Pandef Tower, she sees Iconoclast, her back, and she's accompanied by Superluminal. And Superluminal is a young fragment in Iconoclast's ranks. And Superluminal basically blows up the Pandef Tower by pointing at it. And just as Petra is about to run off in horror, Iconoclast begins to turn, and yeah, Petra runs off. So there's a bunch of stuff that I'm going to be releasing slowly that I hope you guys will enjoy. In terms of inspiration for Asem, for Sem, I started writing this back when Man of Steel came out. So I always like the idea of this legendary superhero, this miracle that's out there somewhere for people to believe in.
And I thought that with the refugee crisis and everything that's going on in the Middle East right now, it would be appropriate to have a hero that could be everybody's, that could be a refugee's superhero, not just those of us who are more fortunate. So yeah, if I can remember anything else that I wanted to say here in this space, I will definitely come back to you guys. But yeah, I hope you do keep a lookout for those notes and for additional notes and for the auxiliary scenes. By the way, because they're going to be in script form, they'll read a little differently to prose or to the rest of the novel. So they're going to read like script. So I'll read out direction, then I'll read out a character's name, then I'll read out a line. So it won't flow the same way. But I hope you guys still enjoy them. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Bye.